This is Penny. She's a friendly little drone that loves doing snappy freestyle tricks like power loops or Rubik's Cubes and filming smooth cinematic footage. She's also quite durable, which means Penny can take some pretty hard hits and fly away unscathed. But to understand what really sets Penny apart, we need to go back several months. I had gotten tired of cruising around with my Cinewhoop and wanted a good freestyle drone, until I saw the price tag, which got me thinking, what's the cheapest drone I can build that's actually worth owning and not total garbage? The rules are simple. It must be a 5-inch, which means propellers are 5 inches in diameter, and it must carry a full-size GoPro. So I spent the next few days researching the cheapest quality parts and placed my order. First, we need a frame, and I really only had one option, the TBS Source 1 V5. The design is open source, so you're pretty much paying for the price of the carbon fiber. I paid $48.90, which is less than half the average price of similar frames. It did take me a few minutes to figure out how to put it together, but it was pretty simple. Now for the motors. I wanted the Emax Eco 2 2207s, but they were out of stock, so I settled for the 2306 1700 kV version. They're $25.95 each, which came up to a grand total of $103.80 Australian. Apparently Emax sells these for less than it costs to make them, which I think is pretty kind of them. It's nice to see companies helping out in the budget department. Screwing motors in is the most basic skill one can have, so I finished that up in record time. ESC and flight controller. They will be Penny's brains. Now, I'm no flight controller expert, but everyone online proclaimed that the SpeedyBee F405 V3 stack was the GOAT of budget FPV brains, so I bought it for $119.99. This even has Bluetooth built in, so that's pretty cool. It comes with a ELRS 50A ESC, which I soldered all the motor wires to. Compared to the last drone I built, this was a much more pleasant experience. The solder pads on the SpeedyBee were reasonable. The solder pads on the GetBusy all-in-one board from the Synolog 35 I built were incredibly unreasonable. First, I put the capacitor on the bottom side of the main power pads, which would cause major problems later on, and the XT60 cables on the top side. I cut all the motor wires to length, tinned both the ESC pads and motor wires, soldered them all on, and zip tied the motor cables to the arms. All up took me about 1 hour. Now, this wouldn't be an FPV drone without a camera, and if you haven't guessed by now, it's gonna be analog. Let's buy the Foxia Razor Micro, cause it's gonna fit perfectly into our Oh, it's out of stock. I had to buy the Foxia Razor Nano instead. There's even a few dollars cheaper at $30.95. The only downside is that it isn't wide enough to get screwed into the frame. The camera brackets on the frame are 19mm apart, while the Razor Nano is 14mm wide, which means in total there is 5mm of empty space. To fix this, I used 2 TPU spacers that were 3mm each. When screwed in, the extra millimeter of TPU compresses to keep it nice and tight, and it probably also helps with vibration dampening as well. Next is the Express ELRS Receiver. The cheapest one available is Happy Model's EP1 RX. It's $22.99 Aussie dollars, and from experience, it works just fine. I soldered all the wires to the flight controller and zip tied the antenna to the arm. Yes, I did do that. Please don't bully me for it. I had nowhere else to put it. Next is the VTX, and I actually bought 2 different VTXs. One is the cheapest I could find in stock, and the other costs a little more, but should dramatically improve our range and penetration. So the cheapest I could find in stock was the Rush Tank Tiny. It's $42 and has a maximum output power of 300 milliwatts, which is pitiful to say the least. The solder pads on the VTX are a little small, but at this point I'm kinda used to it. Once the VTX was all soldered up, I screwed the top plate on, which means it's smoke test time. Even though I'm a professional, having built a total of 1 drone before, I still do smoke tests, just to be safe, you know. This is the scariest part, so it works. Yeah, something was wrong. So this is what it's supposed to sound like. But I was only getting the first half. I plugged it into Betaflight, and then the flight controller and receiver LEDs were alive and flashing. The flight controller wasn't connected to the ESC. I unscrewed the top plate and found that the ribbon cable that connects the FC to the ESC wasn't fully plugged into one of the connectors, which was an easy fix. My audio cut out, so you can't hear it, but the full startup sound played. Before doing anything in Betaflight, I went to escconfigurator.com and flashed BlueJ to the ESC. With BlueJ, you get bidirectional D-shot and better motor performance than BLHeli-S. It also means there's a new startup sound. Now, I still haven't satisfied rule number 2. It must be able to carry a full-size GoPro. So I found a GoPro mount designed for this frame and had it 3D printed out of TPU by the lovely folks at Phaser 3D for $12. I also got 2 battery straps for $2.99 each. Finally ready for a test flight. I've never flown analog before, and I've never flown a 5-inch, so I'm really excited. Yes, it flies perfectly. This was my first time flying analog. I disarmed at the first hint of static.
You dropped from so high.
Not gonna lie, the range was so bad I couldn't leave the front yard. Don't forget, we're gonna put a better video transmitter on, which should definitely improve the signal. So the two things that were tripping me up were the staticky video and the latency. Yes, you heard me correctly. You see, I'd gotten used to the latency from the DJI 03 system, which is around 25 to 35 milliseconds with my goggles. But with the tests I ran, I found my analog drone's latency to be approximately 15 milliseconds, which is half that of the DJI 03 average. Alright, enough bad signal, let's install a better VTX. Introducing the Rush Tank Ultimate Mini VTX for $69.99 and a Foxy Lollipop Omni antenna for $9.85. First I unsoldered the old VTX, then tinned and soldered all the wires to the new one. Next, I screwed the VTX into the frame and soldered the wires to the FC. Lastly, I attached the antenna. I plugged a battery in and expected video feed to my goggles. However, the signal was so staticky that it was impossible to see anything. Long story short, the capacitor was sitting on the pads for the VTX, and that gave so much interference that the signal was unusable. I had to move the capacitor from behind the ESC and above the VTX, to in front of the ESC and behind the camera cage. And then the video feed was nice and clean. Been a few months, I've had a lot of practice, let's go rip. Still using these eShine EV800Es. It's like, batteries have had a bit of abuse. Yeah, I have happy birthday on here. The antenna looks fine. Oh. Failsafe. Something is obviously wrong with the antenna. It was working for like the last several months. And then today, I'll show you, it stops working. So we're fail-safing at like 100 meters. Okay. Antenna is off. I think they like updated the design of it or something. Pop it on. That's the sticky tape, so we're just going to coat the receiver with sticky tape. We got Penny all fixed up with a new antenna, so got a battery, we GoPro on, ready to fly. Let's go. After moving the capacitor from the back to the front, like the range is actually pretty good. Like I'm surprised by how far you can actually go with analog. It's pretty good. Obviously not quite as good as DJI, but like I can go a decent ways with this. So you can go like down the driveway and stuff. Like no way. I'm sitting on the veranda and there's that's a bit of difference and a bunch of interference. See right now we've got the shed in the way. So yeah, that's pretty good. Like we can go all the way down here. Before I could never do that when I first put this VTX on, so yeah. Definitely, if you're using analog, keep any sort of electrical interference away because it'll completely ruin your signal. So, something to keep in mind. So something I haven't really tried to do before is get a really nice one-take freestyle run. So practice the line and then get it nice. Alright, so you should probably start off with something risky. So start off like this. And then go like, do a power loop here. Turn like this, go through the garden, and go like up this tree, go here, do a power loop, Go back through. Oops. That wasn't good. Alright, here we go. No. Okay, that was try 1. Let's do try 2. Oh, that's the tightest power loop I've done over that in a long time. Go down here. And down here. And down here. Over this. Power loop this. Yeehaw! Did it! No! We just fail-safed! What in the world? Yo, what? Not again? Just the ND filter just completely gone. So here's the thing. Penny might be the cheapest 5-inch worth owning, but she is analog. Some of you might want a digital option. So if you want to check out this video here, where I test out the cheapest digital 5-inch that you can buy. See you there.